Joining us now is OjyOkpe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Janet.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. How are you this
Very
morning?
Good.
Perfect.
Well, you brighten the room a bit more with your smile.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, you make me smile. Good morning, Ayo. We missed you yesterday.
I missed
and you are shining.
Oh, thank you.
Well, all right.
Thank you. It's a brooch, isn't it?
No, I just said you are shining. You are better than any brooch, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. How are you this morning?
Morning, Oji.
Very well.
You're glowing.
Oh, well, thank you. I like all these compliments. All right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe. In the United States, President Joe Biden delivered his remarks before the 78th United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday and condemned the unconstitutional takeover of government in West and Central Africa, while reiterating his country's unwavering support for democracy across the globe. Biden expressed support for the actions taken by the African Union and the Economic Community of West African States to pressurize the military junta in Niger Republic to restore constitutional order and reinstate ousted President Mohamed Bazoum.
We have to stand up to this naked aggression today and deter other would-be aggressors tomorrow.
Then, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, in his remarks to world leaders at the 78th United Nations General Assembly, said it is time for UN member states to show with their actions that they mean what they say concerning the crackdown on terror financing, economic sabotage, and illicit mineral and arms smuggling in the developing world. He also presented Nigeria as business ready.
The question is not whether Nigeria is open for business. The question is how much of the world is truly open to doing business with Nigeria, and how African is an equal, mutually beneficial manner.
In Nigeria, the presidential candidates of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, and the Labour Party, Peter Obi, on Tuesday filed appeals to the Supreme Court against the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, which affirmed the election of President Bola Tinubu. Peter Obi, in a 50-ground notice of appeal, faulted the panel for striking out several paragraphs in his petition, stating that the panel was wrong to have held that he and the Labour Party failed to prove their allegations of non-compliance with the Electoral Act, among other issues. Atiku, on the other hand, in a 35-ground notice of appeal, stated that the tribunal findings were done with grave errors and gross misrepresentation, which resulted in the miscarriage of justice. Finally, a Lagos State delegation led by the Deputy Governor of the state, Obafemi Hamzat, on Tuesday paid a condolence visit to the mother of late singer Mohbad. The Deputy Governor assured the family that justice will be served on the matter and that the Department of State Services will join the police for a thorough investigation. Fans and family members of the late singer will gather on Thursday, September 21st for a candlelight vigil in Lagos to pay tribute and honor Mohbad, who also goes by the stage name Imo State, which means light.
When I can't talk no more, if I go live forever, she go do what no more.
May Mohbad's soul rest in peace. Aya, you weren't here yesterday. We discussed this topic.
Yes.
And you know, tomorrow fans are going out to pay their last respects to a 27-year-old Mohbad who died yesterday. It's good to see that the Lagos State government is paying attention. Yesterday, Sanwo-Olu released a statement saying that the DSS will also investigate the matter.
Sanwo-Olu would have been there himself, but he's currently away in New York for the United Nations General Assembly. But it was a high-level delegation. Yesterday also happened to be Dr. Obafemi Hamzat's birthday, so that's how important it was.
Yes.
He took time out of his day and he gave assurances to Mohbad's family. His mom was was there, and it was just sad to see her looking so sad. But the assurances he gave was that Lagos State would look after the family, especially his son, 5-month-old son Liam, and also more importantly that justice will be served, and
yes.
we're going to investigate. And in that statement, she talked about Sanwo-Olu had mentioned, Governor Sanwo-Olu had mentioned that the DSS was now involved. It's a matter of national security. It's
Absolutely.
perhaps bigger than what we're talking about. So that's the best that Lagos State can do: justice, and of course looking after his family.
Absolutely, justice must be served. Justice for Mohbad. Well, let's continue on what's trending. President Bola Tinubu, alongside delegates of 54 African countries, is set to declare war on the global drug trafficking scourge at the forthcoming 31st meeting of heads of national drug law enforcement agencies in Africa. Tinubu is expected to deliver the keynote address at the meeting, which is set to begin on Tuesday, September 26th. Top on the agenda will be discussions and collaborations on alternative development to cannabis cultivation, trends and partnerships over asset forfeiture, cryptocurrency and money laundering involving drug cartels, among others. The Secretary to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency made the announcement on Tuesday, stating that the meeting, which is a subsidiary body of the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs, is to enable heads of drug law enforcement agencies in Africa to discuss and develop strategies to combat drug trafficking and abuse in the region. I think this is such an important meeting, Dr. Abati, and you know the menace of drug among especially our youth in Nigeria. I mean, it's now come back to limelight, owing to the fact that, Mohbad died, and there's a lot of stories about, the NDLEA, whether they arrested Mohbad at one point, and, the Malian records. The news is also coming as the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency last week debunked rumors that the agency poisoned late singer Mohbad after a video surfaced online in which the late singer could be heard saying that he was poisoned by the NDLEA. The spokesperson of the Anti-Narcotics Agency, in a post on X, also clarified that Mohbad was not among the Malian music acts arrested by the agency in 2022, as speculated on social media. Dr. Abati.
One, I think the clarification by the NDLEA is very important because that story was out there.
Yes.
There were also some family members who were alleging that there was poison involved and all of that. So that clarification by NDLEA is important. However, the second other story is the HONLAF. It's called HONLAF.
Yes.
The 31st annual meeting of the HONLAF taking place in Abuja. And the collaboration, the idea of collaboration, cooperation, partnership among African countries is very important because drug trafficking, of course, is transnational. It's, transborder, kind of crime. And to see that Nigeria has been focusing heavily on, substance abuse is very important.
Yes.
But I think a lot more still needs to be done in terms of public education, youth education. So many Nigerian youths, it's not just because they are musicians or they are artists, who are on drugs. They call it, sometimes they have codes for it. They call it a biscuit. When you hear biscuit, you think it's the normal biscuit. It's not biscuit. Or they call it eja, meaning fish. When you hear eja, it's a code for, and you have this increasing population of young people, particularly at the secondary school level, who are either taking marijuana or they are taking some other harmful substances. And then, of course, the effort of government is not just the focus. I think parents, community, churches, places of religious worship also have to be involved in this campaign. I mean, look at our country, so religious, okay? At every corner you see a place of religious worship, but at the same time, you'll find that, we have this issue of drug trafficking. Nigeria used to be a transit point, but now it's a major consumption center. And that's why, it's so much concern and it's spreading. But I think the NDLEA so far is doing a good job. They just need to be given more support, to deepen the effort.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to do commendations to the NDLEA under the leadership of Buba Marwa. He's done a lot of very good work as regards fishing these people out. I mean, it's under NDLEA. We saw the relations of somebody like Abba Kyari, the police guy, to a drug syndicates, which is quite very sad. But yeah, we've talked about advocacy, against drug abuse and the likes and things like that. But the major reason for proliferation of drug abuse is because people high up there, one way or the other, find themselves into this circle. And these big drug cartels in Nigeria cannot be touched. That's the principle, pure and simple. I mean, you saw government officials, being caught in all of this. You saw all sorts happening. That's the reason. You saw the last work NDLEA did as regards busting a syndicate out there in the corridor, and you'll be shocked the mammoth amount of drugs we have. But if you have a country where someone like Abba Kyari could have been linked to drug, a top police chief, then that's the free reign of drug in the country. So apart from all the advocacy and telling people don't do this, don't do that, it's also the willingness of the government to be able to bring down people that are high and mighty. Because you see, these drug cartels, they have quite a lot of power. Look at what Sinaloa is doing in Mexico and the likes. So the high and mighty, if you can bring them to book, it will stop. But the problem is, do we have the political will and the strength to be able to bring the high and mighty that are involved or connected with drugs to book? That's one thing we've lacked over the years. Today I'm shocked at the way marijuana is common property. I remember back in the days, people, you can't smoke marijuana and be proud of it in public. But today, when you even see law enforcement officers smoking marijuana in public.
Music videos and all of that.
Music videos,
horrible.
popularization of marijuana.
Yeah.
And politicians use these musicians, for their political campaigns. So that's the problem. And that's what we're having in society here. So it's really about the big people that coordinate the supply and trafficking of drugs that have power. There are a lot of people have not been able to bring the book. That's a major problem. If you do that, you boss the cartels, you boss people. But these cartels are very strong, and sometimes they have political powers.
Well said, Rufai. Well, let's turn our attention now to Imo State, where 8 security operatives were shot and burned to death in Owerri, the state's capital. The incident, which occurred early on Tuesday, threw the entire community into chaos as most residents had to flee their homes. The governor of the state, Hope Uzodinma, paid an assessment visit to the area and expressed sadness over the incident.
This battle has to be collectively fought. People must volunteer information, because these people, they don't just emerge from heaven. They live around here, they live among us. And to the glory of God, the soldiers and other security officers have been able to manage their temper. This kind of thing is very provocative. And one of the reasons why I'm very quiet about this incident for now is I'm very sad and I feel so hurt. It's a terrible situation.
Our heart goes out to the families of those 8 soldiers. Ayo, I don't know if you saw that video. It was horrific to watch. I mean, you had the histrionics of that man who filmed that video. I mean, it was shocking to see. I mean, what gives these people the audacity to go after military men in broad daylight in that manner? I mean, something has to happen in Imo State.
Something has to happen. And just going back, like you said, it's horrific.
Yeah.
As the governor mentioned, it is provocative.
Yes.
It is provocative because if, the men in uniform want to have a reprisal attack, we don't want to, take on the consequences of those actions. But one thing we must do, and I'm glad that we've been having conversations around, it's election season, bringing on candidates. Earlier on, we had the spokesperson of the PDP talk about the situation, insecurity in Imo State. Oftentimes, we look at the Northeast, banditry, terrorism, kidnapping, but this plague of the unknown gunmen has lasted for too long, and we mustn't wait for situations like this that are horrific and almost disgraceful, because it's beyond. It's a strong statement. When you begin to attack the men who are meant to protect the people,
Yes.
then it's a big statement. And the governor of Imo State, as well as the federal government, has to act and act promptly. Imagine what they've had, outcries from the people, the residents in these areas where some of these places are unlivable. Elections are not able to hold in some areas. It's a headquarters. So, what has happened? What has been done? And why hasn't this been arrested or nipped in the bud, thus far? As the governor said, a lot of these people are people who live around the area.
Yes.
There must be a community-based approach to this. It's not just for the government, but people who must work together to ensure that we bring this men to light, and they must face the consequences.
Yeah, there must be peace in the Southeast. This is horrible. May their souls rest in peace. We'll take our final story. In the wake of the massive flooding in Lagos, resulting to the death of one person, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, on Tuesday expressed sadness over the tragedy and voiced concern over reports that the flood had displaced over 2,000 people from their homes. The Speaker called on the relevant authorities and state authorities to take immediate action to prevent the reoccurrence of such incidents. He also urged the National Emergency Management Agency to promptly provide necessary intervention for the displaced.
My boys are working. My boys are working. If you don't know, come and chama, don't come sama.
Live and direct, live and direct. Here, China line, Chinese line.
This is Satellite Town. Satellite Town Trade Fair International Market. That's an official vehicle being pushed out of the road. Everywhere is stopped up. That's a car sunk inside there. As of today, September 16, 2023.
Dr. Bati, I know you have seen this because I heard you talk about this on This Day Live over the weekend. Horrible situation, and I'm glad that the Speaker has spoken about this. I hope that there's more action that will be taken on the flooding, especially in Lagos. Well, in Madrid, Spain last week, floods took over the streets, including the metro.
This train station, I will go abroad. I won't go abroad. See our train station. See everybody. See everybody for train station. You don't. Even people when want go morning walk, no roads to pass. This one they happen for Madrid, for Spain. Now they happen so Madrid, Spain every day. I'm inside the water. See people coming from behind. See it. We are swimming. Look at my shoes. See, this is our train station this morning. See, it's when you are saying it, nobody will believe. Now you believe so. No, be only Niger. The experience, yeah. See everybody for outside. Those where they go morning walk. No road for them to come out.
All right, that woman said, not be only Niger, the flood that happened, but in Madrid, the flooding is attributed to, climate change. It's a little bit different here. Dr. Abati.
One of the major issues at the ongoing United Nations General Assembly is about climate adaptation, climate change, and ensuring global solidarity around the issues. So we've seen Spain, similar thing in Libya, climate change issues in Brazil, in Greece, in Bulgaria, and other parts of the world. But the concern about Nigeria is that it's not just about climate change, water levels rising, temperatures rising, global warming. The big problem in Nigeria is one of negligence on the part of government. Every year, we talk about recurrence. We talk about flooding in different parts of the country. Lagdo Dam, the Fufore local government area in Adamawa State, counterpart dam that Nigeria is supposed to put up there. We've been on it for years. Basic environmental precautions that need to be taken. Nobody has done it. What we hear every time is that, there will be heavy rainfall this year. So people living in low-lying areas should move upland. The Speaker is right that, there's a lot more that can be done to prevent recurrence. And people like Honorable Kafilat Ogbara and others, private individuals who try to help people, they also should be commended.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
ours is beyond the climate change.
Yes.
It's also about negligence on the part of government.
Absolutely. And like we've seen in Lagos, most of those homes were built on, poor drainage system and all of that. Well, I'd like to thank you all for your great analysis, as always, on What's Trending. I'll see you all tomorrow.